guys, I'm Annie and welcome to my YouTube channel. You wanna say hi? In today's video, we are taking a deep dive into the Warlock talents available to us in the Dragonflight Alpha. I'll be covering the Warlock general tree and also take a close look at the destruction tree specifically. Keep in mind that this is still an early alpha build and things can still drastically change, so rather than using this as a build guide, treat it as a first in-depth look at all the talents available to us, with a pinch of feedback. If you want to support me, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also comment in the chat below if you'd like me to cover any other spec in a similar way. Enjoy! So let's dive into the Warlock general talent tree. As we can see here at the very top, this one is already slotted in. It's Curses of Enfeeblement, which mentions Tongue and Exhaustion, both curses. One thing to note here in comparison to Evitel is that Curse of Tongues is actually reducing casting speed by 50% instead of the current number on Evitel, which is 30. So that's interesting. I wonder if that's intentional or if it's just a tooltip bug, because that does mean that Curse of Tongues is suddenly stronger in Dragonflight, so that's interesting. The movement speed at 50% is still the same, so no changes there. This talent will get enhanced by another talent down here on the 4th row called Amplify Curse, and that's the part that also makes me wonder if the Curse of Tongue buff is intended, because here we can see increases casting time by an additional 40%, meaning that ability gets even stronger and more obnoxious, so I'm not quite sure if that is intended, but it's very interesting to note. So, looking at the rest of the first row, we have Fell Domination, which is a direct spell from Evitel right now, and instead of it being baseline, it's actually a talent choice. So you can talent into it if you like to have an instant summon, or a very, very fast summon. Here to the right, we have Burning Rush. Burning Rush is a talent choice in Evitel, and here we get it as a talent choice as well. Dragonflight Edition. On the right side here, we have Imp Step, which is the empowering talent for Burning Rush. Both of these are completely optional utility things if you find it useful, but it can be really fun to play with. This Imp Step, completely new ability, reduces the damage dealt by Burning Rush and also increases the movement speed. So putting 2 points into it means that the damage that you take is reduced by half and your speed is 10% faster. I could see this potentially being used in PvP now, as the damage that you take is a lot less, so it's not as dangerous, and also in potential PvE scenarios where you want to be able to run even further or even faster. So definitely a cool utility option here. In the middle here, we have two talents. We have Demon Skin, which is a copy of what we have as a talent option in Evitel. And here we have Fell Armor. And while Fell Armor might sound familiar, the ability itself, or the talent itself, is actually completely new. We have Soul Leech absorbs damage. 5% of damage taken is absorbed and spread out over until cancelled, so we have a little bit of a stagger effect, and it also has a general overall reduces damage taken by 3% if you put 2 points in it. Having both Demon Skin and Fell Armor is pretty cool because it's showing that Warlocks are potentially going to be a lot tankier, and you'll see more talents below as well, which also does hint towards that, so that is cool. Okay, so third row now. We have Spell Lock. Yes, Spell Lock is now by the player or the caster instead of the pet. So that means it's going to be the Warlock herself that is casting it, meaning if you are CC'd, you cannot use your pet to interrupt, which kind of sucks in PvP scenarios. I wish this was given as an option. If you want to have your pet to interrupt, you should be able to do that. If you want it to be yourself doing that, because I understand in a lot of PvE scenarios, having a pet that runs off to I don't know where and doesn't interrupt your target can be really annoying, but I would have liked to see an option where you can keep it as a pet ability as well. Accrued Vitality. Drain life heals for 30% of the amount drained over 8.6 seconds. You might recognize this. This is actually a conduit from Shadowlands as well. So they have put it as a talent here. And if you look straight down below it, Demonic Circle is no longer baseline and also a talent that you have to pick here. This kind of forces us to put 2 points into Accrued Vitality, even if you're not really interested in buffing your Drain Life. So yeah, I'm not very happy with the position of this talent. And especially not because you're putting 2 points into it. So if I want Demonic Circle, I'm forced to put talents into something that I may not be that interested in. Just a quick note and comment on the position of this. But the ability itself, not new, it's a conduit, now it's part of the talents. The last node here on the third row is a choice between Hallowed Terror and Mortal Coil, which shouldn't be new if you play Warlock on retail already, as they are on the same talent row in Shadowlands, so the choice that you're making is exactly the same. I would personally probably pick Mortal Coil. It gives a small heal as well on a pretty short cooldown, but Howl is also pretty good, especially if you have more enemies around you. Alright, time for fourth row now. On the fourth row, we are looking at Amplified Curse to start with. I mentioned this briefly earlier when talking about Curse of Tongues. Amplified Curse was originally a PvP talent in current Shadowlands, and now it has been moved on to the general Warlock tree, available for anyone to play with it. So what it does is it empowers your different curses. So for Exhaustion, it's an additional 20% movement speed reduction. For Curse of Tongues, it's a cast time reduction by an additional 40%. And Curse of Weakness adds the bonus effect of enemies unable to critically strike. That is that. And since we're talking about this talent right here, let's go straight down as well, as we have a talent that directly empowers it. Foul Mouth reduces the cooldown of Amplify Curse by 10 seconds. So this talent here is completely new, but it empowers the talent here, which was originally the PvP talent. If we continue here on the fourth row, we have Demonic Embrace, stamina increased. If you guys remember, I was talking about Demon Skin, Fell Armor. Now we have stamina increased by 10%. Yep. Warlocks are getting tanky. Although, to be fair, Demonic Embrace stamina increase by 10% is already in Shadowlands. It's a passive ability, so it's nothing new really. It's good that they're keeping it there. Next up, we have Demonic Inspiration. This talent is completely new. It's not been in the game before, as far as I know at least. Filling a soul shard increases the haste of your primary pet by 5% for 8 seconds. Pretty cool ability. I'm assuming it's mostly meant for demo pets, perhaps. I'm not sure if I would talent into it as Affliction or Destro, but I guess that is to be seen. It depends maybe a little bit on tuning. Similarly, we have another ability here, Wrathful Minion, also 1 talent point. Filling a soul shard increases the damage done by a primary pet by 5%. So these two talents are pretty similar, where they buff your pet every time you fill your soul shard. I feel like maybe they will be mostly used in demo, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe it somehow becomes good for Destro and Affliction as well. Demonic Circle here in the middle. I was talking about this before. Definitely a talent I want to go for. It's a fun and cool utility to have in both PvP and PvE, but again, the position of it does force me to put 2 points in accrued vitality, and that does kind of suck. Further to the right, we have Demonic Fortitude. Increases you and your pet's maximum health by 6%. More tankiness. Warlocks are getting tanky. Obviously, you don't have to put in all the points for all the tanky talents. Yeah, here's another one for you and your maximum pet. This one also really synergizes well for demo warlocks as well, because of their abilities that is based on the max HP. But in general, if you find yourself wanting to be more tanky, maybe in PvP scenarios, then you might want to pick this as well. For now, I'm gonna skip it though and see how many points we need to go further down. The last talent here on this row is Banish. Baseline in Shadowlands. Yeah, just the CC. One thing that's new is the talent below it, which is an empowering talent, increases the duration of Banish by 30 seconds and also now affects undead. It's a very specific thing that is maybe used sometimes, maybe in specific Mythic Plus dungeons or maybe specific raid scenarios. It's definitely not something that you're normally gonna run, but it could be something that's useful sometimes. One fun fact, I tried this on a DK that pops Lichborn, and yeah, it allows you to then banish a DK. As a Warlock, I know fearing DKs and then they pop Lichborn is really annoying, they get immune, so you just banish them instead. So that's like a fun little PvP fact. Alright, it's time for row 5. We looked at this earlier, the empowering talent. Desperate Power. 2 points in, which gives us Drain Life Heals for 30% more while below 50%. May be useful in very specific scenarios, or maybe if you're running some kind of Drain Life spec. You might recognize this ability as it used to be an Azerite trait back in BFA, and yeah, now it's a talent option here with 2 points. I'm probably not going to use it unless I have to, but it's good to know that it's there. Sweet Souls, next up. Your Healthstone heals you for an additional 10% of your maximum health. Any party or raid member using Healthstone also heals you for that amount. Again, not really a must-have thing, but if you find yourself needing a little bit of healing, or if you just find it cool, you can pick it as a talent. I might spec into this just because it's a cheap way to get into Dark Pact, if I don't want to go into the Amplify Curse, and if I don't want to put points into Desperate Power. But yeah, remains to see. We'll see how we end up spending our points here. If you recognize Sweet Souls, it's because it's another one that has made a comeback. It's an adjusted version of the Affliction artifact trait from Legion. Next up is Lifeblood. Putting 2 points into that gives you 15% leech for 20 seconds every time you use a Hellstone. You might recognize this as it used to be an Azerite trait from back in BFA. Demonic Gateway is a talent now. It is baseline in Shadowlands, but becomes a talent choice, a standalone here for Dragonflight. I would probably spec into this because I like it as a utility, so I'm going to keep that point there. Oh, I actually don't want those points. I'm going to remove them. The ability itself hasn't really changed. It's just Demonic Gateway. Pretty cool stuff. The next thing here is Nightmare, putting 2 points into that. When fear ends, the target is slowed by 30% for 4 seconds. I believe this is a new ability. I feel like I've seen similar things in the past, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was exactly, so I think it's new. It's a very, very specific type of spell that you will use when it's needed. Otherwise, I would probably not put the 2 points into there. It doesn't feel worth. Row number 6 is a small one. We have 3 nodes here. First one is Dark Pact. I love this spell, both in PvP and PvE. 1 minute cooldown, it's a short cooldown, sacrifice your health, get a big shield, and yeah, it's amazing for PvP situations when you see the enemies bursting. It's amazing for PvE when there's big damage incoming, whether it's single target damage that's coming onto you or AoE in general to help your healers. Dark Pact is a very solid choice. If you go down here, we have a node which has 2 new abilities. One is Ichor of Devils, which is Dark Pact sacrifices only 5% of your current health for the same shield, and Frequent Donor, which reduces the cooldown of Dark Pact by 15 seconds. I already love Dark Pact as it is, so I would definitely go down to this node as well. And then the question is, which one would I pick? I guess it could be a little bit situational. I think the reduction of the cooldown probably sounds more interesting because it means you can use it more often, but this one is not bad either, especially if you're playing in a scenario where the damage that comes will eat your shield real fast. Then maybe having this where your HP has not been cut down as much could be useful, maybe in situations where you don't have a healer to get that HP back up again, like in solo scenarios kind of situations. But both are pretty cool though. The next node here are 2 things that affects your Unending Resolve. Before we look at this, I want to show you guys the tooltip for Unending Resolve here, which says hardens your skin, reducing all damage you take by 25%. Unending Resolve has been nerfed. I don't know if this is intended or if it's like a tooltip thing, but currently on retail it's 40%. Now in Dragonflight it's 25%. So here, the reason I'm mentioning this is because one of the options gives you an additional 15%. Meaning, picking this talent actually turns your Unending Resolve to the version which is currently in Shadowlands. So if you really like that 40% damage reduction, you can still pick it here. And then the other option here is to reduce the cooldown by 45 seconds. I think reducing it by 45 seconds is also really useful, especially because Unending Resolve also gives you the immunity to interrupt. So in PvP scenarios, if it's not a comp that is highly bursting, like not a rogue mage, then I think reduction on the cooldown could be more useful, so you can use it more often. But the 25% damage reduction is really little. I don't know, like in PvP scenarios, I think you kind of really want the 40%, so it's a tough choice. Situational, maybe, depending on what you're facing. The reason why I think this may not be a tooltip bug or whatever, the reason why I think it's intended is, well, one, it gives you the option to bring it back to 40%, and also because we have a lot more tanky talents in general. We have the Demon Skin together with the Fell Arbor, together with Demonic Embrace, which to be fair is actually in retail already, but still. Then you have the Demonic Fortitude, and also if you go down here, we can take a sneak peek at the next row here, Soul Link. Soul Link is available to all Warlock specs. So that could also potentially be a reason why this is happening. The last node here on this row is Shadow Fury. Shadow Fury is a baseline in Shadowlands. It's not a talent. Here it's a talent, so that means if you actually want it, you gotta spend a point for it. Maybe you find yourself not really using it, then you can skip it, but it's a pretty useful ability both in PvP and Mythic Plus, maybe not so much in raid scenarios, but yeah. Another interesting thing with Shadow Fury here is that you have a node here which empowers it, potentially. So you have Dark Fury, which is a Shadowlands talent, reduces the cooldown of Shadow Fury by 15 seconds and increases its radius by 2 yards. It's actually identical to what you can find currently on retail. And then we have Shadow Flame, which is actually not new. It's a comeback spell from the past. Slows enemies in a 12-yard cone in front of you by 70% for 6 seconds. So you're choosing between reducing the cooldown of Shadow Fury or getting an additional CC, which is pretty cool. It's a cone in front of you. It is an old ability from Cataclysm, although it has been adjusted. Right now it's completely CC based, whereas in the past it would also deal damage. And I'm assuming they made this little change of removing this damage and dot on it because they want to keep it as a pure CC option and not, you know, become part of the rotation for a Warlock, as it means you would potentially need to come closer and, you know, adjust your positioning for your damage, and that's probably not what they want to do. So it's just a pure CC option here instead. I would probably pick Shadow Flame. I'm not that great at using Shadow Fury on cooldown, so the 15 seconds won't make a big difference for me, although I should be better at it. I'd probably pick Shadow Flame, just for that extra slow. That is if I even pick this node, which I won't do yet. We'll see. Okay, so next row. Oh yeah, I really like that one. And then we have Claw of Endereth. Drain life now channels 60% faster and restores health 60% faster. This you might recognize as an actual legendary from Shadowlands, and it's now a node in the talent tree. The numbers have been adjusted, but the effect itself is exactly the same. If you end up having a spec, especially in Affliction, where you are focused around drain life a lot, that could be interesting, but for now I'm gonna skip those points. And here we have Grimoire of Synergy. Damage done by you or your demon has a chance to grant the other one 10% increased damage for 15 seconds. This one is also a Shadowlands legendary, so that's another legendary given as a node in your Warlock general tree. 10% damage increase honestly sounds pretty good. I was initially going to say maybe like a demo thing, but overall I think it sounds like a pretty decent talent. I guess we'll see as we start counting up how many points we can put in here, but so far I'd say it sounds pretty good. Oh, okay, now I see we actually do have to put more points up here in order to unlock the next one. Okay, we need to put in one more talent point. Where would I put it? Yeah, I think I'm just gonna put the point into the stamina here then. Wait, there's more points? More stamina. There we go. Okay, it's been unlocked now. We talked about Soul Link before. I'm a huge fan of this ability and was hoping that they would add Soul Link for all specs, and now they have, so I'm immediately putting a point into that. That is 100% a good pick, in my opinion. Especially in PvP, maybe not so much in PvE, but I'm gonna put the point in for now. We have Teachings of the Black Harvest, which gives a bonus effect for all your different pets. Maybe situational. Depends a little bit. I think you might run out of points and maybe it doesn't feel worth to put any points in there. I do see it being interesting though, especially from a PvP scenario. If you look at the imp one, it says successful Singe magic casts grant the target 4% damage reduction for 5 seconds. So if you know that there is some burst damage incoming, I mean, I guess the same could be said in a PvE scenario. You can use your imp to dispel yourself. Maybe in a PvE scenario you're not likely to have a magic effect on you, but in PvP it's likely. Then you get that 4% damage reduction, which is really nice. And you can play with the imp because, as I said before, the spell lock is now bound to the caster, meaning you don't have to play the Fill Hunter in order to be able to interrupt. So we might actually see a more variety of different pets to play in PvP. Having said that, with Soul Link, your imp will actually probably die real fast. So you may end up not even being able to play the imp. Maybe you'll end up playing the Voidwalker. I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see how things play out. The last one for this row is Soulburn. Also an ability that has made a comeback. I believe Soulburn was removed with the Legion, if I'm not mistaken. And basically what it does is it empowers your other abilities at the cost of a soul shard. Yeah, so as you can see in the list, Demonic Circle, Teleport, gives them movement speed. Demonic Gateway can be cast instantly, which is actually huge. You can just run and create a gateway. No longer not being able to cast a gateway in PvP arena, which is great. Drain life, gain an absorb shield equal to the amount of healing done for 30 seconds. So in addition to the healing, you also get a shield, which can be useful in specific scenarios where you're maybe not taking damage yet, but you want the shield. I don't know. Anyways, bonus effect. Cool. Very cool. Health funnel restores 140% more health. Reduces damage taken by your pet. Hellstone increases the healing of your Hellstone by 30%. And increases your maximum health by 20% for 12 seconds. That's pretty huge. That's pretty huge. But yeah, as you can see, Soulburn is not on a cooldown, but instead it costs a soul shard. So you may want to use it, but if you use it too much, you're basically not doing anything else because the most useful abilities cost soul shards. But the ability is there, you know, if you're really desperate, if you're really low HP, you can use it for both the gateway and the teleport and the drain life. You can use everything if you really want to. For the next row here, we have a group of new abilities. We have Pact of the Imp Mother, which buffs your pet damage. Each time your primary pet or Grimoire of Sacrifice deals damage, their damage is increased by 1% up to 5%. After reaching 5 stacks, this bonus resets. We have Pact of the Nylon. 2 points into this. Rain of Fire deals 10% additional damage to enemies affected by Immolate. And the last pact here on this row, Pact of the Eridar. Chaos Spot increases damage of Immolate by 10% for 6 seconds. All these different pacts are new, and depending on the playstyle that you have, they might actually be a decent buff to your damage. The first one being a buff to your pet damage, the middle one being a buff to Rain of Fire, so AoE type of specs, and Pact of Eridar for a more single target kind of spec. On the same row here, we have a big question mark, Inquisitor's Gaze. Summon an Inquisitor's Eye that attacks your enemies for 1 hour. For 1 hour. Yeah. It says NYI next to the name, Inquisitor's Gaze, NYI. That stands for not yet implemented. I have no idea what this is gonna do, but I'm assuming that 1 hour is a typo or just a placeholder because I don't think it makes sense. Would be cool though. Would be cool though, but yeah, no, I don't think that's right. I guess we'll see once maybe the next alpha build or something. Maybe we'll get a fix to this. And last but not least, oh, definitely not least, Soul Conduit is now a standalone talent. You may recognize this from Shadowlands. It's on one of the talent rows where you have the option to choose it from some other talents, but here it's standalone. Very, very solid, strong talent. Definitely recommend. For the rest of these, it kind of depends on what you want to do for the final row. So let's read what is on the final row. We have here, Summon Jailer. NYI again, not yet implemented. Summons a jailer that consumes all tormented souls you've collected, blasting nearby enemies for chaos damage every 1 second for each tormented soul. You collect tormented souls from each target you kill and occasionally escaped souls you previously collected. People think that we defeated the jailer and he turned into an empty robot. What actually happened is that us warlocks just enslaved him. And that's it. And we sometimes summon him to deal a little bit of damage. You might recognize the wording of the spell. This spell is actually the exact same as the Legion Affliction artifact weapon ability called Reap Souls. So it seems to be a slightly reworked version of that and has a jailer in the name. Going to be interesting to see how that's going to be visually, but I think the ability itself is basically something that we have seen before, which is cool. For now, as we're playing through talents, I'm not going to pick it because, well, it doesn't do anything. So we're going to skip that and move over to the next one here, Decimating Bolt. I recognize that. I've been playing Necrolord Warlock for a while now. It's basically the Necrolord Covenant ability for Warlocks, and it has been put into the talent tree as an option here at the bottom. And last but not least, Dimensional Rift. Dimensional Rift was the artifact weapon ability for destruction back in Legion as well. So that ability is also making a comeback. And I'm actually really happy about that because it's a really nice and easy ability to use. It has 3 charges and you just straight up spam summon it and you're done. Burst damage, easy to use it while running, no cast time. Really nice. And it depends, of course, on tuning and things like that. While I'm playing for fun, I'm gonna pick it. Eventually, you know, it really depends on how things are tuned to see whether it is strong or not. But it's a cool ability to have, so I'm happy to see it. It seems like we need to put in... Oh, I actually can't reach it. I think I need to remove this in that case. Alright, so I'm gonna remove this 1 point from Soul Conduit just to have the Dimensional Rift. Keep in mind that I am level 60, max level is going to be 70, so I am missing some points. You will be able to build further down here as you level up. So for end game purposes, you will have more points, don't worry. Soul Conduit is probably going to be a solid choice for all the different specs, no matter what build you go for. Dimensional Rift might be good, might be bad, depends on tuning, we'll see. And I think that's it. That's my full build. Overall feedback, we kind of talked about already. I don't like the position of Demonic Circle, forcing me to put 2 points in Accrued Vitality. I don't care about my drain life. I would have liked to see that moved, maybe even just swap places with each other. Could have been great. Another thing was the spell lock. I would like it to be an option, whether you want it for your pet to have or whether you want yourself as a caster to have it. I think that should be optional. I think especially in PvP scenarios, it's really nice having your pet be the silencer while you're being CC'd, and also it's, you know, it's a big signature for Warlock as well to have your pet do the abilities, so I think it should be given as an option. I do agree that it's nice having the caster, like yourself, being able to silence things, especially in PvE scenarios where you are assigned to do something, but then your pet decided to go, you know, to the other side of the platform, too far away to silence. That's kind of annoying, but I would rather see it as a choice than having it forced this way. A spell that I would like to see is actually Fell Flame. Fell Flame was not added here. It's extra nice for specs like Affliction that doesn't really have any quick instant casts. Like as Destruction, we do have Conflag. But as Affliction, I think it would be really nice to have something like Fell Flame. Putting it on the talent tree as like a standalone talent, I think would be really cool. Just for fun. It would probably not affect rotations in any way. It would just be an extra spell. A direct spell that you can use for things like totems. I think that would be really nice. Alright, that is the Warlock talent tree wrapped up. I think it's time to just jump into the Destruction one. So let's take a look over here. First spells first. Chaos Bolt. Yes, great spell. Awesome. On the left here we have Conflag. Conflag is baseline for Destruction on retail, and here it's a talent choice. It's really high up though, so it's not that hard to get it. You will probably end up going for it even if you go for a spec that doesn't use it that much. In the middle here, we have a choice between Havoc, which is from retail, baseline, now a talent, and a new thing called Mayhem, NYI. It's not properly implemented right now, so you can't really test it on alpha, but it's here as an option. The difference between these two, it seems to be two different ideas of tackling the idea of cleaving. So Havoc is a specific target that you want to take damage based on what you're dealing to your main target. Mayhem is you continue dealing damage to your main target, and sometimes there's a chance for a portion of that damage to be dealt to a secondary target. So the difference is Mayhem is more passive, whereas Havoc allows you to choose where your damage goes to. To be exact, Mayhem, your single target spells have a 25% chance to strike a nearby enemy for 60% of normal initial damage, and Havoc marks a target with Havoc for 12 seconds, causing your single target spells to also strike the Havoc victim for 6% of normal initial damage. I'm hoping that these will be tuned in a way where min-maxing Havoc will be the best choice. You know, deciding when that 12-second window will be, deciding what target you're havocing, should end up overall being the better damage output. I really like having Mayhem as an option, especially when progressing new fights, so when you don't know the timers of things. I'm sure everyone has experienced in a new fight they havoc a target that actually died too fast, or maybe ended up being immune, or maybe ended up like jumping away for one reason or another. So having Mayhem where you can just focus on whatever target you want and sometimes dealing that cleave damage, it's like a nice and safe option. And then once you get more comfortable, once you learn timers, once you learn how mobs are behaving, you could opt into Havoc to min-max that damage a little bit better. Having said that, it's also a great option for casuals in general who may not want an extra button to press, and also if you're not a main Warlock player and you're playing it as an ult, it's nice to have more passive options rather than just Havoc being a dead ability. I do wonder how Blizzard will decide to implement Mayhem when it comes to spells that are not damage abilities. So for example, Havoc is often used in combination with double mortal coiling targets, and with Mayhem, I wonder what happens if you would coil a target, if that coil would also then just randomly CC another target, or if the coil just wouldn't count. I'm picking Mayhem here for now, but I might change my mind later. I just want to see what happens as we go further down the tree. The last one here on the second row is Rain of Fire, which is baseline in Shadowlands, and here it's a talent choice. Nothing really new about it, just talent choice instead. So row 3, we have Backdraft. Conflag reduces the cast time of your next Incinerate or Chaos Bolt by 30%, maximum 2 charges. Backdraft is in current retail as well, just as a passive. So here we have it as a talent option and not baseline, but the ability is still the same thing. Next, we have option between reverse entropy and internal combustion. This is actually the exact same choice that you have to make on retail as well. So I'm assuming they figured that these are pretty decently balanced to be chosen between, and so we are doing that for Dragonflight as well. Your spells have a chance to grant you 15% haste for 8 seconds. So this works kind of for both single target and AoE spec, and then internal combustion Chaos Bolt consumes up to 5 seconds of endless damage over time effect on your target, instantly dealing that much damage. Potentially single target, but reverse entropy also works with single target. I like haste, so we'll go for that. And next up we have Pyrogenics. This is a completely new ability. Enemies affected by your Rain of Fire takes 5% increased damage from your fire spells. So you may have noticed already this early in the tree that on the left side we have a lot of single target type abilities. We have Conflag, Backdraft, which affects Conflag, and on this side we have Rain of Fire as a first choice, and then secondly the damage taken by the mobs who are affected by Rain of Fire is increased. So we have a somewhat potentially single target build-ish here, and an AoE type of build on this side. Now let's go to the next row then. We are on the left side here, potential single target. We have Roaring Blaze. Conflag increases your Soulfire, single target, Immolate, Incinerate, and Conflag damage to the target by 25% for 8 seconds, and improved Conflag Conflagate gains an additional charge. So Roaring Blaze is a talent on retail at the moment. Improved Conflag is a slightly modified version of the Shadowlands Legendary. So you have the option to choose between these two. Conflag additional charge, maybe if you find yourself in a fight where you're running a lot, so having that extra charge of instant damage can be nice. Maybe for PvP as well. Roaring Blaze is overall probably better, especially if you are just standing still and dealing damage, because it buffs your other spells that you might want to be standing still and casting instead. Let's go for Roaring Blaze for now. Next ability here is Combusting Engine. Conflag increases your remaining Immolate damage by 15% until Immolate expires or is refreshed. You might recognize that because that is a conduit in Shadowlands right now, and here we have it as a talent. Next up after that we have Soulfire. 3.4 second cast. I do not look forward to casting this. Burns the enemy's soul, dealing damage and applying Immolate. And it generates a soul shard. 45 second cooldown. So again, you know, single target based abilities here. Next in line here we have abilities that affect Mayhem or Havoc. So as you can see, it is in the same column as the choice that we made up here. So we have Havoc lasts 3 seconds longer, and Mayhem has an additional 10% chance to trigger Pandemonium. And then we have Cry Havoc. Chaos Bolt duplicated by Mayhem or Havoc explode, dealing X damage to targets within 8 yards. So a little bit of an AoE effect, and this makes it last longer. This is probably better for a single target type of build, and this is probably better for an AoE type of build. Let's go for AoE. Okay. Next up, we have Improved Immolate. Increases the duration of Immolate by 3 seconds. I think this is a new spell, a new passive, but it may have existed in the past as well. Not 100% sure. And the last on this row, we have the choice between Inferno and Cataclysm, which I'm sad about, but makes sense. We have the exact same choice to be made on retail. Inferno, Rain of Fire damage is increased by 20% and has a 20% chance to generate Soul Shard Fragment. And Cataclysm calls for the Cataclysm at the target location, dealing damage and afflicting them with Immolate. What am I gonna pick? Go for a Rain of Fire spec. Okay. On the left side here, we have Channel Demon Fire. I'm kind of sad that it's positioned this far away. I would have preferred it to change with Soulfire, because I actually really like this ability. It feels good to play, and it's a very short cooldown as well. It's a channeled ability, so some people might find it annoying, but I kind of like it. But it's a little bit too far away if I am going for an AoE spec, whereas if it was here where the Soulfire was, you know, I could have potentially put some points into it. But here we are. Let's see where this takes us though. If we pick Channel Demon Fire, it also has a talent right underneath it, which empowers it. Channel Demon Fire fires an additional 2 bolts. Each bolt increases the remaining duration of Immolate on all targets hit by 0.2 seconds. On all targets hit. Yeah, this really does feel a little bit more AoE centric, if you could call it that. I think I would have liked to see the Soulfire and Channel Demon Fire swap places to make it easier to pick it together with your other AoE abilities. But for now, it's a little bit far away, so I'm probably not gonna pick it. Oh, and another ability that further empowers it and empowers other stuff as well. Damage of Conflag, Channel Demon Fire, Shadow Burn, and Soulfire. To be fair, the rest of the abilities in Ruin are actually mainly single target damages, so it makes sense for Ruin to be here. But yeah, it would be nice if Channel Demon Fire just went a little bit closer to the right side. For now, we're skipping those points. Next ability on this row is Shadow Burn. Same ability as in Retail. Nothing too new about it. It's a talent on Retail, and here it's a talent once again for Dragonflight. In this case, you don't have to choose between it and 2 other spells, but yeah. Simple old Shadowburn. Shadowburn also has an empowered talent right underneath it. Conflag and Shadowburn have a 25% chance to guarantee your next cast of the ability to critically strike and increases damage by a critical strike chance. So a buff to the damage for Shadowburn and Conflag as well. So more single target stuff. I'm gonna remove some of the points here as well to make sure we have enough going down the tree on this side. So next up we have Decimation. This was actually an empowering ability for the Soulfire right above. So in the case when I was talking about moving these 2 closer, we would probably have to move both of those further away here as well. For that swap. The empower here is your Incinerate and Conflag casts on target that have 50% or less health reduce the cooldown of Soulfire by 5 seconds. 45 seconds to 5 seconds. So if you are playing with a spec that uses Soulfire, you definitely want to get this as well, because for each time it reduces the cooldown by 5 seconds, so this can actually stack up and become a long time saved and a lot more casts done. Next up we have Rolling Havoc. You guys might recognize this as an Azerite trait from BFA. 2 points into this, each time your spells duplicate to a Havoc target, gain 2% increased damage for 8 seconds, stacks up to 10 times. This is really strong. It's really nice, actually really cool to see it here again. However, what if you don't play Havoc? What if you play Mayhem? What happens then? Maybe Blizzard is planning to add something else to the Rolling Havoc that affects the Mayhem as well. Maybe after they've properly implemented it to see, you know, how it behaves in certain situations. I don't know. But it will be interesting to see because this passive is really cool. I really want it, so it kind of forces me to go into Havoc to make use of it. Next up, Fire and Brimstone. Incinerate now also hits all enemies near your target for 15% damage. This used to be good once upon a time, and then it was nerfed. More than once, I believe. To a point where I'm not really sure if it's worth the 2 points. 15% damage. It would be cool to see if Blizzard would consider adding charge regen on this, or potentially increasing the damage done, because right now it's not very strong and it's 2 points. 2 points into this. Yeah, I would not pick this right now. It does not seem worth. So next up we have Chaos Shards. When you fill up a Soul Shard, you have a something chance to generate an additional full Soul Shard over 2 seconds. I don't see the percentage exactly, but I think this could be pretty good. I think I would probably initially take it, maybe depends on the percentage. If you recognize it, this actually used to be an Azerite trait from BFA. For now I'm gonna pick it. Let's see what other options we get as we move on. Backlash increases your critical strike chance by 2%. Physical attacks against you have a 2% chance to make your next incinerated instant cast. This effect can only occur once every 6 seconds. 6 seconds? That's pretty often. 4% critical strike chance is pretty nice, so I think a lot of people pick this regardless. The 25% chance to make your next incinerate instant cast. In a PvE scenario, the second part is probably a dead part of the passive, but the critical strike chance is still worth it. For PvP, this can be really interesting when you have melee classes that are on you. Having a free Incinerate every 6 seconds. Incinerate doesn't deal that much damage, but then again, if you do talent into Decimating Bolt, which empowers your Incinerate, it could actually be some decent damage that goes into this. Okay, and next up is Flashpoint. Just like Rolling Havoc, all Warlocks are very happy to see this come back. An Azerite trait from BFA. When your Immolate deals periodic damage to a target above 80% health, gain 4% haste for 10 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. Big haste. Really nice to see it come back as a talent for Dragonflight. Next row then. Ruin, we mentioned it before together with Channel Demon Fire. Also a comeback spell from the past, by the way. And after that we have Eradication, current retail talent. Chaos Bolt increases the damage you deal to the target by 10% for 7 seconds. Very strong ability for single target use. If I'm going to build an AoE spec, I'm probably not going to put points into this, but I'm going to have it now so that I can reach these spells down here. Next up here, Ashen Remains, Chaos Bolt and Incinerate deal 5% increased damage to targets afflicted by Immolate. If you recognize this, that's because this is currently a conduit in Shadowlands and is now a talent for Dragonflight. Chaos Bolt and Incinerate. So again, sounds like a sort of single target build. Useful stuff, or not as useful for AoE. Grimmer of Sacrifice. Grimmer of Sacrifice. Sacrifice your demon pet for power, gaining its command demon ability, causing spells to sometimes deal damage. What if you pick Soul Link? If you pick Soul Link and then you sacrifice your pet, in the past we did have the combination where when you do that, you get an additional, I believe it was 20% health. Right now, it kind of makes Soul Link a dead talent, and sure, you could opt out of it and put the point somewhere else, but I do wonder, as a sort of question mark potential feedback, are we going to get some kind of combo effect for having both and sacrificing the pet? I think that could be really interesting, especially in PvP scenarios when your enemies won't stop killing your pet. Then I think that could be an interesting choice. But for now, I am intending on playing with Soul Link, so I'm not going to talent into it, but that is an interesting thing to talk about potentially in the future. Next row, we have Infernal, which is apparently a talent choice. I'm a little bit upset about that because I feel like it should be baseline, but I guess it is what it is. So Summon Infernal also then comes with some talents below it, which empowers it. So we have here, Summon Infernal reduces the soul shard cost of your next 3 casts of Chaos Bolt, Shadow Burn, or Rain of Fire by 1. So, allowing you to cast more of them. The next empowered talent is Infernal Brand. Your Infernal's melee attacks cause its target to take 15% increased damage from its immolation, stacking up to 15 times. This one you may recognize directly as it is a conduit in current Shadowlands. So in order to reach the last node here on the last row, you actually have to choose to put talents into one of these and Infernal. So let's say you like the Infernal Brand, as it sounds pretty strong. Then you unlock the last node here, where you get to choose between Reign of Chaos or Wilfred's Sigil of Superior. So you have Reign of Chaos, the talent from Shadowlands, which affects your Infernal. While your initial Infernal is active, every soul shard you spend has a 15% chance to summon an additional Infernal that lasts 8 seconds. And Wilfred's Sigil of Superior, which is a Shadowlands legendary. Every soul shard you spend reduces the cooldown of Summon Infernal by 1.5 seconds. So this also affects your Summon Infernal. That's why they are connected in this way. So you have basically cooldown reduction on your Summon Infernal by picking this one. Personally, I like reducing the cooldown for big abilities like this, so I would probably go Wilfred, but who knows, maybe for different type of scenarios, you may want to pick the Reign of Chaos instead, which is also really strong. For now though, we need points to check out the other nodes, so I'm gonna remove all of these, and we go further to the middle here. Embers of the Diabolic. Incinerate now generates 100% additional soul shard fragments. You may or may not recognize it. This is a legendary in Shadowlands, but it's not often used, so most people don't know that this thing exists. And now it's a talent for Dragonflight. The options that we get as we go down here is Power Overwhelming. Consuming soul shards increases your mastery by 1% for 10 seconds for each shard spent. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration. And then to the right side, we have Madness of the Aj Akir. Probably pronouncing it wrong, I'm really sorry. This is also a legendary, but it's been buffed because the legendary is based on Chaos Bolt, and here they have added Rain of Fire and Shadow Burn to it as well. So Chaos Bolt increases damage of Chaos Bolt by 25%, reduces cast of Chaos Bolt by 20% for 4 seconds. Rain of Fire increases damage of Rain of Fire, and Shadow Burn increases damage of Shadow Burn. It's a buffed version of the legendary that we have on Shadowlands right now. And these two nodes here give us access to Chaos Incarnate. Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadow Burn always gains maximum benefit from your mastery Chaotic Energy. This is really interesting. In case you didn't know, the mastery for Warlock is a little bit RNG based. It increases your damage of your spells, but it also has a portion of the damage which is randomly generated, so it could go from very little damage to a max amount of damage. And this talent makes sure that your Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadow Burn always gets the maximum benefit, so no more RNG there, always max damage, which actually sounds really cool. I'm not sure if we can probably even reach it actually if we end up building this side here. So this could be really interesting. It depends. We might be a little bit point starved, especially right now when we're only level 60 and not 70. But yeah, that's a really cool talent right there. So let's take out the points again so we can make sure to put things into the node over here. So Ritual of Ruin. Does it sound familiar? Every 15 soul shards spent grants Ritual of Ruin, making your next Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire consume no soul shards and have its cast time reduced by 50%. So Ritual of Ruin, this is basically your 2 set. It's slightly modified, as you may have noticed. It says every 15 soul shards instead of every 10 soul shards. And also it says cast time reduced by 50%, which affects the Chaos Bolt. Rain of Fire is instant, so it doesn't matter. Which makes it a slightly nerfed version, but it's still basically the 2 set bonus for Warlocks in Shadowlands right now. If you go below, you have a talent that empowers this ability, Master Ritualist, which changes the requirement of soul shard spent. And putting 2 points into that actually reduces it by 5, making this basically every 10 soul shards. So now you have the 2 set almost perfectly identical to retail, except yeah, the cast time is still at 50%. I'm assuming they came to the conclusion that having instant cast is maybe a little bit too strong, so they kept it at 50% instead. Below this, we have another empower, Avatar of Destruction, which is basically our 4-set bonus for Warlocks. When Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire consumes a charge of Ritual of Ruin, you summon a Blasphemy for 8 seconds. And there it is, a complete 4-set, although a bit nerfed. The Chaos Bolt cast time reduction is to 50%. I think the 4-set honestly is really nice. I think for PvP you will probably choose this every time, and this was where we were talking about how we don't really have enough points to reach Infernal, although you will if you wait until level 70, so you can definitely do some more combos here. I think Chaos Incarnate is also really good, so for PvP you may want to go for that. It's hard to say for now. We have one more ability that we haven't looked at here to the right side, Burn to Ashes. I believe this is completely new. Chaos Bolt and Rain of Fire increases damage of your next 2 incinerates by 15%, stacks up to 4 times, and you can put 2 points into that, which changes it to incinerates by 30%. So an amplifier for incinerate. I've noticed there's quite a few amplifiers. Like we have this one here, and then we have Decimating Bolt, and then we have the Backlash with the instant incinerates. Could be nice when in combination with everything. That is the full look at Destruction talents. Overall, I think the Destruction talent tree is pretty cool. We have a lot of really cool spells from the past coming back, like Flashpoint, Rolling Havoc. We have a lot of legendaries that are making it into the tree, like Madness, Embers, and a bunch of others. We also have the 2-set, 4-set. The only thing that I'm not a huge fan of is Infernal not being baseline. And also, I'm lacking burst cooldowns. I really want my Dark Souls. Where is my 2-minute cooldown? Apart from that, I think the build is pretty good with the single target, most of the single target stuff being here on the left side. You've got the AoE stuff there, you got some cleave in the middle. I would like to see Channel Demon Fire and Soulfire being considered to swap places, just to make it a little bit more accessible if you are going for the AoE side, to have Channel Demon Fire as well, because you will never want Soulfire if you're going AoE spec anyways. I think that's about it in terms of my comments on it. I'm also really curious to see how Mayhem works out. We had some talents there which made me feel a little bit question mark, like Rolling Havoc. How would that affect Mayhem? That would be interesting to see how they end up implementing that. If you got this far in the video, I really want to thank you for supporting me. I don't normally make these kind of videos, so please leave any type of feedback you have for me so I can do it better. And if you are interested in having a similar overview for another class or another spec of the Warlock itself, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to do it again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye! I said Legion? When did I say Legion? It was BFA? What? No, I did not. I did not say Legion. Did I really? Oh, if you want loot, just loot it. Like, why do you loot the wrong thing? Just loot the right thing and just get it and be done. And stop repeating the same content.